Assalamu alaikum, Atta. How are you?
Yes, I'm fine. Fine. Thank you,
That's
Farhan.
wonderful. That's wonderful. So tell us about
Mm.
yourself. What do you do? And also let us know about your education, qualification, and all.
Uh, hmm. So I'm an experimental physicist, trained as an experimental physicist. And currently I'm a faculty at Lahore University of Management Sciences at the Department of Physics. So
Wonderful.
I'm an academic and a researcher in experimental physics. What I was trained, I had my PhD and master's in physics from Germany.
All right.
And my undergrad was engineering from GIK Institute,
All right.
Pakistan,
Hmm.
in engineering sciences. So that's what my background is. So I started as an engineer, and then I moved toward physics. And so I switched to I formally became a physicist later on.
And why did
Uh,
that magic happen?
that's kind of thing which was so the thing was like when I was doing engineering. So engineering is something which deals with more applied problems. So what engineering deals with, okay, it takes something, and the idea of engineering is that, okay, you say that how a certain idea is being applied, and how can you make that application better? How can you improvise it, and how can you make that application of some idea or some concept in science better in terms of its application.
All right.
Uh, but when I was undergoing that training of engineering, what I felt about myself was like, this is not what I'm interested in. I'm interested in another set of questions, and that set of questions is why do things behave the way they do to start with? Yes. So for example, if I am going to use a concepts in application, so the first of all, I want to understand why that thing is the way it is. So that's where those sort of answers that comes from physics then. So you
Right.
have to go to basic sciences to answer those sort of questions. So it depends on what sort of questions you are interested in asking, and what kind of questions make you more kind of enthusiastic about a certain field. That determines which direction you want to go. So this was the kind of thing with me, that I started as an engineer, but the kind of questioning they were dealing with, I didn't like that, so I moved to physics.
And
So,
when
for example, I can,
please
yes.
continue. Continue.
So I can give you an example of like I was like an electronic engineering I was doing. So there you see that uh, we were doing a lot of courses on. Uh, there are these materials called semiconducting materials, and all our uh, like your laptops and mobiles are all of them are based on semiconducting materials. And so the engineering side of that was dealing with how to design those devices, how to make it better, and so on. But then I was interested in why this material behave the way it does. So that's so the answer was in the physics side. So that's why I got interested in that. Yeah.
And when did you realize that you want to take yourself toward the physics side? I mean, was it
Hmm.
too early, too late, or was it exactly the way when it should have had happened?
I mean, these sort of questions, they are never too late. You can ask those sort of questions even when you are very later in your career, for example. So because it's not very obvious many times, and for many people, that what they want to achieve or what they're fully interested in. So maybe you are trying out something for years and years and years, and then you finally realize, okay, these are not the sort of things I'm really seeking to pursue. So those kind of shift towards into other fields, they can come very late in life as well. So I don't have any problem with the timing as such. So I'm perfectly fine the way it did. Like, even if it would have come later on, I would be perfectly fine.
All right. So, I mean, how was it when you were choosing your career and people who were hiring you, were they having any problems? Like you have shifted yourself toward the physics and you do not have the basics of the physics, or you did not initiate it with physics? Because it
Mm.
usually happens in Pakistan, to be specific, that we are more
Yes.
concerned that you should not change your field, otherwise you would be
Hmm.
of no field. So they always
Hmm.
request that you should stick to one field, decide one field, and just stick to that. But you are kind of a
Hmm.
person who has achieved a lot by changing the field, and it's going very well. If we see it, this is kind of a success that you have achieved, mashallah. But still, my question is, how was the behavior of the employers when they were hiring you for an institution? I mean, specifically in the
Hmm.
physics department. Were they open
Hmm.
to accept you, or was it more difficult, challenging for you and for them as well?
Okay, for like there are two sort of responses I got. One was, so initially when I came back to Pakistan after doing physics, so I wanted to join public sector university. So when I inquired about the position, so the line of thinking there was like, okay, because your undergrad was engineering and not physics, so we can't hire you as a physics faculty. So that was the kind of thinking in a couple of public universities I inquire about. But then uh, like, that was the kind of response I already expected, kind of. Given I have some, like, of course, you have some idea of what you're gonna get back. But then I had applied at LUMS here, so the faculty here was much more open to that sort of thinking. That okay, someone who is not coming from the physics background, but later on he switched to physics, they were perfectly fine with that. But I myself see more myself posing myself to international job market as well. Not I'm so I look myself not as someone who would target Pakistani job market, but someone who can target an international job market. And
Wonderful.
when I look with that spectacle, or when I look with that point of view, I don't see any problem at all, because it's a very normal thing to shift your field of studies midway your career, or even after, like later on in your career. It's quite normal. uh, a lot of people, they do, like, they start one type of degree and then they switch over to another, so that are boundaries which used to exist in Pakistani education system and which still exist to a larger extent. Those kind of things are not there anywhere in this international market. Most of the developing countries, they are way beyond that kind of thinking. So just to give you an example, so when I was doing my PhD in Germany, so I was doing, like, there were, like, we were 15 different people, different students who were doing PhD at that time. So out of 15, at least 8 people were such that they were either coming from computer science or they were coming from completely different field. So it's a completely normal thing to switch over, either during your studies or afterwards. What matters is your skill level and your skill set you are bringing to a certain job position. So that's what matters most to an international job market, that which kind of skill sets you are coming with, and how high you are on those, at which level you are in those skill sets. So that's what's most important
That's
in
great.
international job market. So that's how I thought about. But of course, when you are coming to Pakistan, you have to look at local perspective as well. So the people,
True.
the way people think about it, they haven't. So the industrialist and the job market people who are hiring, they haven't updated their point of view regarding. So you might be fortunate that, okay, you might come across some people who are open about that. But yeah, there is by and large that kind of stratification of subjects which is still present here in the local market. Yes, so that thing is still prevalent.
That's indeed it is. All
Hmm.
right, Atta,
Hmm.
you are a person who has experienced two education systems, like one from
Hmm.
Pakistan and one from Germany. You have to tell me
Hmm.
which one do you find more productive, more advanced, and why?
Okay. I've also worked in UK for a few years, so I know that their system as well.
All
Uh,
right.
okay. Uh, so of course I would opt for the system prevalent in Germany, and there are, like, pretty obvious reasons for that. Uh, So, and that has to do with what how do you view education as a whole, as a concept. So, so maybe first I try to answer that, and then you would know the answer as well, why I prefer those systems than this one. So education is a process. It like in my view is something which enables someone to learn something, to think about it, and to able to develop your own thinking, and to be able uh, to organize your thinking and express your thinking either in written form or spoken form. So that's the whole process of education: learning plus thinking, develop your own thinking, formulating them, not only develop ideas but making them coherent, and then be able to express that. So there's a whole kind of chain of thinking. Uh, so if I compare the education systems here and as compared to Germany, I mean Germany is much forward in that. So the way they train students, they are at least skilled. For example, an undergrad student in Germany who has studied mathematics or studied physics or any subject for that matter, it doesn't matter what subjects you are coming from, but they they provide the skill set needed to do the required thinking in a specific subject. So any undergrad who has passed, who has gone through a German education system, he would be prepared enough to do their sort of thinking, develop their own thinking, and then also not only develop, but also able to present that. So this whole process is kind of like it is very well established there, and they have kind of optimized the whole process. There are many different steps involved in that. So but in Pakistan, if I like, let's say if I look at an undergrad who comes out of, for example, an engineering program, for example. So in general, so I'm talking about tech, not the very few couple of very like the best universities in Pakistan, but in general, if you look at the graduates which comes out of our institutions with a degree in a certain subject, they're not able to develop their own thinking, not able to make coherent thoughts, not able to arrange their thinking, and not able to express their thinking. So all these steps are kind of missing from, and so the thing is where they are missing from. So it's from the very start. So the like the groundwork is laid at the very beginning. That's where the problems come from. That the primary education and the secondary education, they don't prepare uh, people to think, and then don't prepare people to express their thinking. They don't prepare them to develop their thinking process. So this is what I think about that. Like different stages, they miss important ingredients of this whole process of education.
True.
In
Very good.
Pakistan.
Very good.
Yeah.
A very good explanation by the way to understand the system. But one question, one short question is that, so you believe that Germany education system is better than from the UK. Is it your finding?
Uh, mm, okay, let me think. It's a bit difficult to to compare. Uh, I would prefer German education better than the UK. When I talk about UK, I don't talk about the top universities, but the general
We're
level of,
talking in general context.
yes, and mainly because uh, in the German system, you have enough time to absorb things. So it's not like something. Uh, it's not like the semester system which the UK universities follow.
All right.
Yes. So what do they have is, in most universities, the system at undergrad level is such that you have the first 2 years to completely sink in all the fundamentals of a certain subject. For example, if you are doing physics degree, so you have 2 years to completely sink in all the ideas, and once you are good enough with that, okay, you feel confident about, then you can go for a comprehensive exam in the whole fundamentals of that subject. So that's I find a better method than what even like the system in US or the system in UK does, where you have to, because the pace is so fast, it's all the ideas which you have to develop, all the skills which you have to develop for an undergrad program, or the fundamental skills which you need to develop, they need some time to become a habit of that. So everything you learn, you need to give it time. You need to give it time to sink in completely so that you become accustomed to that. And I think a rushed through semester system is not a good way to go about it. Yes,
Right.
because the things are so fast, things are coming so fast your way that you simply don't have enough time to keep pace. So new things are coming and coming. You don't have enough time to sink in all the new skills which you have to
True. All
get
right.
better at, get
Yeah.
accustomed.
Well,
Yes.
Atta, this is the problem side, and you have categorized it so well that this is Germany, then UK, and then Pakistan. Now, the Pakistan is at the number three. I mean, if we compare these three education system, how and what changes can we make in our Pakistani education system that can go to the level two or might be at the level one? I mean, that's what we
Mm,
want. We want the best result because students are spending a lot of years in this education system. Students are spending most of their time, in
mm,
fact, for this education system. They are getting degrees. They are
mm,
they pass their exams, and even after passing the exams, they are not at the level where they should be. So most of the
mm,
time, it's not the student who we should complain to. It's more about the education system. It could be about the teachers. It could be about the institution, or it could be the government policies for education. What's your opinion
mm.
about that, and what's the solution to make this system better?
So, like, if you start with the formative year of education, like the way we start as in a primary school, or so that's where the problems start. Uh, so the basic, like, what you should be taught from the very beginning is uh, to start thinking about things. He can, like, when in a primary school, you would expect someone to think about very simple things. Then your sophistication of thinking gets improved as the level goes up and up, and then you can for a undergrad student who is entering a university, I expect that student to uh, think, to be able to think abstractly as well, not only able to think about things which are in front of them or which they can see, but also things which are of an abstract nature. So, these are the different levels of sophistication which you can get in your thinking. No, the question and the main problem in our education systems at the very beginning, that's where it started from, and mostly it is because of the medium in which it is taught. So, because, like, if you look at a child who has started going to school, and you have to somehow start making him thinking about the things around him, he or she sees around himself or herself. You just want him to realize, or her to realize, okay, what's surrounding you, and what's the role of it. For example, what's the role of a bus, or what's the role of a car, or what's the role of a bicycle, or what's the role of a plant, and stuff like that. Simple. So you have to think, how does the student think? So in which language he or she thinks. So, and that's where the root causes. So a student or a child, he or she learns uh, a certain language from his family, from his parents. That's their first teachers, so to say. So the that kind of language medium, it's already set by their parents at home. And if you start with that medium, that would be the best start you can give to a student. If you make them start thinking in the language they are already familiar with, or in a language they are already comfortable with. So it can be any language, depending on from where they belong to. It can be a language, it can be Punjabi, it can be Pashto, it can be Sindhi, it can be Urdu, it can be like
Arabic.
whatever language. Yeah, it can be Arabic. True, true. So the language, because that's where, that's what they feel comfortable for. So the problem comes there when you start uh, asking the student that, okay, you have just started your school, but not only you have to learn things around yourself, but you have also to think in a language foreign to you,
Hmm.
in a language you don't understand. So it's a doubly difficult task for the student already who is starting a primary school.
Hmm.
So not only the student has to learn the language, a new language, which is something which he or she doesn't speak at home, but he or she has also to start thinking in that new language. And I think it is much more we should expect from a student from at that level. We should expect much less. So that's where the problem comes from, and that confusion keeps on adding more and more because he doesn't never learn to think. And when he never learned to think, then no matter, like, you keeps on going and it doesn't add anything up. So it's just like the start is completely wrong.
All right. So you believe like we
Yeah.
should work on the education system and sorry, we should believe and we should start working on the basic, which means the school system.
Hmm.
Yeah, that's true. So, I mean, this is
Yes.
also
So
true that the major attention is not getting paid toward the school system. It's more about the university side. I mean, even everybody is saying like we are opening more universities, and even the Prime Minister House, or I believe so, like whatsoever was also about to convert it into a university, not in a school. I mean, we need
hmm.
better schools. Yeah, you're right. All right.
Yes. So yeah, the thing, yeah, that's definitely the thing. Like, you have to make. I mean, you start with simple thinking, and you have to make the student start thinking on their own,
Hmm.
and start thinking and they should be able to write something on their own. So these are the basic things, these are the basic skills which you add up on. You start with a very simple thing, and you make it keep making it more and more complicated, so that they can not only think at a higher level, but they can also be able to write in a higher level. And when you try
Hmm.
to write something, you also start learning how to organize your thing, right? So about anything, I mean, it doesn't matter which subject you are talking about, but I'm just anything about whatever he or she's learning. The learning process involves all those different steps, and it keeps on getting complicated and complicated. And a higher school student, it is expected of a higher school student that he or she should be able to do a specific set of skills. They should have those sort of things. But when those skills are not there, and you immediately like make that student go to a university afterwards, I mean, it's just a total failure.
Hmm. True.
You are setting them up for failure, like for the rest of their academic career or whatever. I mean their education. So the things start from the very beginning. Yeah.
True. Because in our
Yeah.
education system, a student is trained not to think critically, not to think creatively, but to cramming, but to memorize
Mhm.
the content. And on the basis of memorization, we give them the marks
Mhm.
and all. Yeah,
Yeah,
true.
because yes,
Hmm.
yeah, it's not only like you may start with a simple writing thing that you expect student to write simple. Maybe creativity comes later on by itself when they develop
Hmm.
their own thinking. Yeah, so just make them think anything. I mean, not very creative. Maybe they can reconstruct someone else's thought and just kind of, for example, they read a book. Make them read a book and say, okay, how do you think about what do you think about what thoughts are coming into your mind? Are you able to write them down? Okay, they may not be creative things. They may be just because he's thinking about things. Okay, I like it, I don't like it, I like it because it is like that, I don't like it because it's like that. Okay, these simple things, just make them write those things down. So you are starting that process, and later on you expect them to not only just think, but think creatively about it. Can they create new ideas out of it, or
Hmm.
can they think, can they expand their thinking to a slightly different domain? So there are different levels of creativity. So you can expect that. So if you don't start the initial process and you immediately expect students to creatively start thinking, not only start thinking creatively, but also start writing creatively, that's an impossible task. I mean, you are starting the process from the middle, which is not possible. I mean, you haven't prepared him for the job and you are asking him to do it.
Yeah, I mean the only method that you are saying that we should be able to think creatively. This is also the way we found Newton. This the whole physics is all about that. Okay, I mean if we see that this is the system we have right now, and we do not have much of the resources, and of course we cannot do it overnight, but still, I take it like teachers have the power. They can develop, they can turn the table around, and they can do something positive, and they can develop this creative thinking mindset into their students. So how would you suggest them what a teacher can do, and what is the role of a teacher in developing this creative mindset?
So, I mean, as a teacher, okay, I can come across, let's say, students who are not prepared for the level of education which they are expecting. Yeah. So there's like it's a doubly difficult task then, uh, to make them work in this at a university. So that in many ways there's like a university student, a university teacher in Pakistan have is a much more difficult task than a university teacher being in Germany or in UK. So what I do is like for my subject, what I do is, okay, these are textbooks, and these textbooks contain some ideas, and these ideas were developed by someone, I mean, 100 years ago or 200 years ago or 300 years ago. So the first thing is those ideas can be wrong as well. They were thought out by humans, and human can be wrong, for example. So start thinking on them on your own. That okay, why an apple would fall, or why would it not go up, for example, and it would just go down. Like so start your own thinking about things. So that's the first thing. So to make them realize that the knowledge we have is developed by humans like us, who failed many times. I mean, all the theories you see, okay, this is the most successful theory in physics. That is wonderful theory, and blah and blah and blah. But the thing is, before we reach that position, a lot of people attempted to develop theory, and most of them failed. What you see in your textbook is a very sanitized version of knowledge. So people on the way to reaching that nice theory, they failed several times, and failuring is in and failing is a part of a learning process itself. So what I try to do is learn things starting from the minimum basic principle you can start, and then try to solve problems using the very minimum basic principles, so that you develop the whole idea on your own. So that's what you do. Of course, it takes a lot of time. It takes a like hell lot of time than what you would expect for a student who would in Germany or UK, for example. If they have gone through that system, here it is very difficult to get them going in that process. Some students get it, others don't, others just completely fails. But yeah, so that's our first thing is, okay, don't memorize things, not try to memorize things, try to develop ideas about things from the very start on your own. Each subject which is being taught, they have some very fundamental ideas. Of course, you can't do without that. Okay? You have to start with very fundamental. Okay, based on that fundamental ideas, can you build up the whole whole thing? Can you build up the ideas? So that's what I try to achieve in the first course I teach to the students who just come into the undergrad
That's
program.
marvelous.
Yeah. Yes. Yeah.
Splendid. But
Yeah.
tell me one thing, the way you were saying, learning failure is the part of learning. This thing is not generally acceptable by so many parents and people in Pakistan.
Hmm.
How would you explain that? The way you said failure is the part of learning.
It's very simple. I mean, the ideas which you saw, for example, uh, let's say Newton's law, for example, or for that matter, anything. There were laws before that. There were laws even before that. So people have been thinking about those problems. It's not like Newton was the first one to think about a falling apple. I mean, falling apples have been there till thousands of years.
Yeah,
I mean,
true.
people have ideas about. For example, Aristotle had idea about why an apple would fall. What Aristotle idea was like that. Okay, so everything is made of a few things: earth, fire, water, and one more thing. But so earth is the minimum state of everything. So everything wants to go to its minimum state, its natural state, and that is. I mean, this was one idea. Then there are other people who came up with ideas and so on. So people thought about it, but those ideas failed. I mean, they were an attempt to explain things, but they are no longer valid ideas. They are no longer valid theories. So those theories got rejected because, so it's a very, in science, it's a very normal thing for ideas to get rejected. And that's how knowledge progresses by, so maybe something new comes up and which invalidates whatever was previously, and you update your understanding of a certain thing. So this is very much part of scientific training, which you are given in, like, for example, this should be that trying and failing, trying and failing, trying and failing until you get it right is the very basic of our current understanding. The things you see, the nice theories in textbooks and all of those came up after several failures, and that's a very well-known, I mean, it's a very well-known fact. People know about it. But that's one thing people say, okay, if I think about this, I would not be able to develop the theory. For example, if a student may say, okay, I see this textbook as say this theory, and when I see a falling apple, I don't come up with that theory. So is there something wrong with me? And I would say definitely not, because that theory which was developed, it came after thinking of several hundred years of thinking. It involves several hundred years of thinking. It was not just a spur of the moment thing that, okay, you are just sitting and you are just immediately get a new idea. It never worked like that. So all the ideas which you see in the textbook, they have been developed by humans like us, but they developed that after several failures. So not it doesn't matter which subject it is. It can be physics, it can be psychology, it can be anthropology, it can be economics. All those theories, all those ideas which are currently prevalent, they have been built upon previous ideas which got rejected eventually. And even that took several hundred years to develop. So this current understanding level of human beings which you have in this at this time in 21st century, the knowledge is built upon several centuries of hard work. Yeah, several failed attempts, several, maybe some successful, some failed, and so failure is an integral part of the learning process.
Yeah,
and this is something which you should so one should learn to fail as well. I mean, unless you don't fail, you won't be able to succeed.
yeah. And you have also said something which is the missing meaning in the failing is you said we should try and fail, trying and failing. So tripod. I mean, when we see, I take it like I took it from your words that when we see over here failing thing, we take it like he did not try. So the first thing is that you should try and then you fail and then it's totally normal. But if you're not trying and you are getting failed for not attempting something, so of course this is just not acceptable in any society.
Yeah,
Yeah, good.
that's plain laziness. Yes, that's
Yeah.
plain laziness, which
Hmm.
like which doesn't benefit anyone, neither you, neither other people. Yeah.
True, true, true. All right.
Yeah.
Atta, moving on to the last question of this interview. Tell me, what is your suggestion for the next generation or for this youth that we have nowadays? Because I was reading one saying on the social media. If we should not rely on the information that we get from the social media, but anyways, there was a good one that this is kind of a nation who complains when the TikTok gets banned. And I mean, there are positive things happening. For instance, when the exams get cancelled, they feel happy. When they ban the
Hmm.
TikTok, so they are more on the complaining side. So what's your
Hmm.
suggestion for this youth that we have?
Think I would like, okay, it's not only for them, but it is in general. The truth of life is that life is basically not my idea. It's the idea of some of the best philosophers we have seen in the last couple of centuries, or even before that, some of the great persons. Even even the basis of the religions, like the big religion, is that life as a human is not easy. You have
Hmm.
to somehow make things life bearable, not only bearable, but in such a way that you are not only beneficial for yourself, but you are also beneficial for other people. And that would be the like kind of the true meaning of life, to be successful in life.
Hmm.
So the thing is, life is pretty difficult. It's just not an easy thing to, and if someone thinks that it's an easy process to live through your life, he or she is completely mistaken. It has to be taken seriously, and it has to be, you have to put a lot of effort to get to somewhere.
True.
Yes. So that's what basically I think about it. Yeah.
All right, wonderful. Well, Atal, thank you
Mm.
so very much for your time. This was really wonderful listening to you and worth listening to you as well. The ideas that you have shared, the vision and the exposure that you've given us about the different education system and the baseline, which is the solution and the problem identified by you, but were so perfect, were the exactly what we were looking for as well. Thank you so
Mhm.
very much for your time, for your ideas, for sharing your experiences with us.
Yeah. Yeah. Nice to talk to you, Farhan, as well. Yeah.
Likewise, likewise, Atta. Take care, stay blessed. Allah Hafiz.